I was 48 when Caroline was born. You know my youngest.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
48.
48.
Wow, bro. You got some swimmers.
That's
Oh
right.
my God.
Hey, welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm David Fenwick, your founder and your host, and I'm here with my good friend and producer, Taylor Lees.
Hello.
Great to have you here.
I know it's going to be fun.
It's going to be a great time. We're going to be talking about this elusive carrot at the end of the stick called retirement, right? And retirement it's uniquely an American ideal, but what I want to do is I want to talk about with you today, Taylor, kind of exploring how you're at 37 years age.
Yeah, 37.
You're 37, and I'm at retirement age. Right?
Yeah. How old are you?
66.
66?
66.
Okay.
So we've got two different perspectives, and yet, you know, one of the things that I feel is that retirement, sometimes it's a you know, your golden years aren't always all that golden, right? And at age 37, you should be asking yourself, you know, you should be dreaming and investing in your future self so that you don't end up like me, you know, trying to make it work at this point. But on a real serious note, retirement so often in America doesn't turn out the way it should in men's lives, you know? You get guys who retire, and there's actually a syndrome called retired husband syndrome.
Wow.
And what it ends up doing is a man who's been working all his life, he leaves his job, and he goes home, and he thinks, man, this is it. You know, this is going to be so good. And then he finds that he's got a lack of purpose, a lack of identity. He's very much alone. This woman, if he's still married, who they've been together for all these years, they look at each other, and they've grown quite a distance apart often, you know. It's surprising the rate of divorce for a retired couple.
What is it?
I think I think what they're saying that the divorce rate is somewhere around an increase of about 18% from that age, from the time you get retired, you know.
Well, I mean, I've heard countless stories of, you know, people that are retired. They've given their whole life an identity to the job, the career.
Yeah.
That like they are just a completely different person. So, like if you think about it, if you're working a 9 to 5, like your whole life and your career, and you retire and all of that, like you've spent more time at the job than you have probably at home with your spouse or with your family.
Yes, right.
Because like when you wake up in the morning, if you're this type of person, like you wake up in the morning, you only have a few hours to eat breakfast, say hi to your kids and your wife, whatever. You leave for work, you're there all day. You come home for dinner, you have dinner time, you put your kids to bed, and then your kids only saw you maybe 4 hours that day, maybe. And then you just go to sleep for 8 hours or whatever, and then you wake up and do it again and again and again.
Right.
And then on the weekend, you're tired, or on the weekend, you do all your chores.
Yeah, you got all those honey-do lists and everything.
Yeah,
right?
and if you don't like have that quality time spent, you just live in this cycle for until you're retired, and then next thing you know, you're like, who am I?
That's right.
And I've heard so many stories of spouses just like, we don't even do anything together. Like we don't even, like, I don't know who he is anymore, who she is anymore. Like it's crazy. Like it was pretty sad.
It gets real sad, and that loneliness that sets in for a man because he hasn't made connections with his spouse. Yeah. His kids are gone. You know, in their whole routine that you just described, right? They're in that rat race now, you know, themselves. And so, you know, some guys will do, like we talked about, some guys will go golfing. Yeah. Well, that's fun. Fishing, that's fun. Yeah. But is that really a life? It's enjoyable. Yeah. But is that really what you retired for? Yeah. You know, I've got this thought, this saying, it's not, don't get me wrong, retirement's not a bad thing.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you worked hard, you earned it. Yeah. I get the whole thing. But so often we focus on what we retired from. And what I want the guys to look at is, what are you retiring towards? Because this is the whole thing about Next Third, Best Third, right? Yeah. It's about examining your life. It's about taking honest appraisal. It's about reinventing yourself. Yeah. You know, saying, hey, what's some of the dreams? What are something I've always wanted to do? Yeah. or what this whole life experience that you've gotten,
Yeah.
the good and the bad, the ups and the downs that you've experienced already, and then take that out and extrapolate it out another 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
All that experience is so valuable to invest into other men,
Yeah.
right? But if you just leave your job and you don't have anything you're going towards, that's where the vacuum is.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Cause honestly, growing up, I've heard this phrase since I was a child, like retirement. Oh, we're saving for retirement.
Yeah.
I've seen it on TV. I've seen it in commercials, financial advisors. Hey, what are you doing for your retirement?
Yeah.
So I've heard this phrase my whole life. And I'll be honest, like I'm 37. I haven't had the kind of luck that other people may have had where they've had a career, they've had a 9 to 5, or they've had a corporate job where the corporate job was giving towards their retirement, their 401k. I haven't never had that.
Yeah.
So like I've had to just work these like other jobs to where I just had to, on my own, learn to save towards my retirement.
Yeah.
So my retirement looks a lot different. Like right now I'm in stocks. So I've and so hopefully it works out, but I have it in stocks, and I try to put money in when I can.
Yeah.
But the thing is I'm like 37 and I don't even think I have anything to work with. And so to me, I'm like, I'm never going to retire. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep working.
So I'm in the point, obviously I work with a lot of men and advise a lot of guys, but in my age group, right, I'm observing these guys, and I've got friends who have more money. They'll never have to worry.
Yeah.
Right. Never have to worry.
Yeah.
But that is such a small percentage.
Yes.
I just read statistics that 37% of all men who retire have less than $50,000 in the bank.
That's wow.
37% have less than $50,000 in the bank. And I just started this last month was the first month that I got Social Security. I got my Social Security check, and it's wild. I never thought I'd be old enough to get it, but if guys your age are banking on Social Security, there's a really good chance, Taylor, that it's not going to be there for you.
Yeah.
Our nation is, we're upside down, right?
Yeah, but I have my opinion on retirement too, and we can talk about that in a second. But you brought up some statistics, so I pulled up like the 2025 retirement statistics, and so I think this is super interesting. So in 2025, the average age of retirement is 64.7 for men, 62.1 for women.
Okay.
So, and my mom, she's retired and she's in her 60s and she's been retired for some time. So she's like, she matched this. So that was from Zippia. The average age of retirement has increased over time up from the age of 57 in 1991. So in 1991, the average age was 57.
Really?
Yeah. So it has increased. Wow. For men, it's almost gone up almost 10 years. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And the expectant age of retirement has increased for the age of 63 in 2022 to 66. So it's, but, and then here's another thing, which is interesting, which we could loop back to this. The current U.S. life expectancy is 79.1 years old. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this means Americans are living longer, but must save more for retirement. So because this was in 1950, it was life expectancy in 1950 was 68.1. So life expectancy has actually gone up.
Yeah.
But that means you have to save more now.
That's right.
But it's gone up. But this kind of goes back to if your retirement is 64.7, like you're 64 years old, that means you only have 16 years to enjoy the retirement.
And that's such a huge part of this, right? It's because most men, when they reach 65 years old, we've talked about that they lose bone mass, right? We all do. You know, at your age, you're losing bone mass and muscle mass, bone density, and muscle mass every year. Yeah. A certain percentage. Yeah. By the time you get to be 64 years old, that has compounded. Mm-hmm. And then you see most guys are overweight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
They're complacent. Mm-hmm. And now they're in a position where they're weak. They're not, they're deteriorating. and yet they're going to live another 15 years. What is that 15 years going to look like if you're not intentional?
Yeah.
We're science and medicine is keeping us alive longer. We're going to live longer because of medicine and science. Sure. There was a statistics I shared on another podcast that if a man reaches 65, 24% of the men who live to 65 will reach the age of 90. 24%.
Wow.
So to your point, that's on one end, it's 25 years of money that you're going to need. And where's that coming from?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, but the other thing is what is the quality of that? Because, I'm always going to go back to that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because even our friends who have all the money in the world, even like, and I'll share a quick story with my uncle. He's, I'm just going to say this because it's just, everyone has their favorite uncle or like their favorite family member.
You're saying that because you're on air.
It's true. And he may or may not hear this, so we'll see. But he's worked so hard, and I've always like looked up to this uncle of mine because I've seen him, start off at this company that he was at, and he worked all his way up to the top. And every time I've seen him, he was always a man of character. He was always a man that, was a family man. He was always a man that he just had peace and love. Like I never really saw him frustrated. I never really saw him like stressed. Like even though yes, that may have happened, but that's my view of him. Yeah. And he's worked so hard, and now he's retired. And so, but he's done so well. It's just kind of like our other friends that they're so well off. So he's playing golf a lot. He's traveling. He's going out of the country to travel with his wife and do all these things. But I'm interested because I want to check in with him and be like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, how's it going? Because I'm curious because of a man of character that he is. Like to me, I feel like he's doing it right. Like he's doing the retirement thing right. Mm-hmm. So I want to pick apart like his method, his thinking, and his habits. I'm like, so like how are you feeling? How are you doing? What are your thoughts? Like, how's your connection with my aunt, and all of that, because he also has grandbabies. So I think that's also another thing. A lot of retired parents that have kids who have kids, their life is grandbabies. Right. Like my mom's retired. She's not, she kind of was dabbling with part-time jobs, but my mom's life is my kids.
Right.
Like she's like, do you need help? I'll come stay with y'all for 3 weeks. I'll do hey, I'm going to come down. I'm going to her life is like, she's reading articles about health for kids and all. So her identity has become part of my child's lives. Yeah. And which is really cool. So that's, and I feel like there's stages of retirement. I
think you're right.
It depends on your culture and how much you've worked towards retirement and all that. Because for me, like I've also heard the opposite, where there's guys in their 70s still working because they don't have a retirement and they have to keep working. And maybe because their parents didn't teach them how to retire, or they didn't, or some life thing came about and then took out their retirement. Because I've heard tons of stories like that.
But there's guys like me who I want to work.
Yeah.
I want to work. I don't want to stop working, Now I would like to get to the place where I can take a trip around the world, or you know what I mean? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
But I challenge guys all the time to be looking and saying, okay, what can I be doing right now in my retired years, to really be investing in themselves. And even you think about, okay, let's say your whole point is to invest in your grandkids.
Yeah.
Wonderful goal.
It's like legacy.
Right? It's all about legacy.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I hope you're in good enough shape that you can get down on the ground with them, that you can get up, you can play, you can, throw the ball, wrestle with them at age 70, 74. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, one of my goals, I've said this before, Peter Attia, who wrote Outlive, he's got this thing, it's called I'm going to mess this up, but it's a decade decathlon. Okay. And it's setting 10 goals for yourself at different decades.
Cool.
Health-wise.
Okay.
Like in the Olympics kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've got goals for age 90 that I can get on the floor with my great-grandkids and get up unassisted. That's good. It'd be pretty cool at age 90, 91,
that's great.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to still walk a brisk mile in my 90s.
Nice.
In my 80s, I want to be able to run
Yeah.
3 miles.
Yeah.
But by the time I'm 90, just a brisk, whenever I want, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain goals that you set for yourself, but you have to be intentional now.
Yeah. But I think, and you have to take like notice of it and make the right systems or the right positions to get into that place. Cause I'll bring up my mom again. She, like, my son wants to run around and he's like, Nana, chase me, Nana, chase me. And my mom's like, whew. And so she would do it, but then she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And so, but that actually inspired my mom to get a walking pad and go for walks when she's not with my son. So when she's back home, she's going for walks. She's on the walking pad. She's exercising because my son inspired her to do that.
That's great.
And I'm like, I love that. And then my dad, he's a different animal on himself. I mean, my dad is just, he goes and does things. He's so active. Yeah. He has a sailboat. He's out there on this work. Wow. I mean, when he's done with work, he goes to the sailboat and he's out in the sun, and the sun's really good for you. Like, my dad's hardly ever sick. And I just feel like my dad has this natural, just like I don't ever really see my dad retiring, because I feel like he's been retired for a long time. Like, he goes to work and he's a pilot. So it's like, it sounds like he's having fun.
Right.
And then he comes home and he has even more fun. And I'm like, Dad, I mean, gosh, I wish I had that, where it's just like fun all the time.
Man, I wish I had that.
I know. And I mean, yes, my dad's a pilot instructor, so he has his times and moments and stresses.
Sure. Everyone
but
does.
Still, he's always telling me these cool stories about flying and all this stuff. And then afterwards he'll be at the sailboat, and he just upgraded to a bigger sailboat. So now he's out there taking people out, and I mean, he's just having a ball.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm just like, now that sounds like retirement to me. But I don't know, like, the definition of retirement kind of messes with me a little bit, because it almost seems like not giving up or letting go, but it almost seems like, okay, I've worked my whole life to do what? Like, I worked my whole life just to take a break and do the things I've wanted to do my whole life. And then I'm going to go do them, but I'm going to be really tired and worn out and have back problems or whatever. Like, I don't know. It just kind of makes me think about it a little bit more.
For years, I actually operated in a very unique way when I was young married, is that I tried to work as little as possible so that I could enjoy my time with my wife. And then when we had kids, enjoy my time. I mean, I had to pay the bills, right? Yeah. But that set me on this course to where I wasn't saving and earning, and piling up and everything. But I did really enjoy myself, to be honest with you. I had a pretty good years in my 30s and stuff like that. Okay. But then when I hit my 50s, and there were some things that happened, in my business. This guy embezzled and put me into bankruptcy, so I lost everything.
Yeah. Wow.
Then, of course, 7 years ago, I went through that terrible divorce.
Yeah.
And so it's like going, somewhere in that middle age, everything just got all screwed up, But now I'm like reformatting, and I really do, because you see it in my life. I mean, there's a redemption going on, but it's also because I'm being so determined.
Yeah.
I'm being determined. I want to recreate legacy. I want to redefine myself. And so that when I talk about retirement, it's coming from that side, that perspective, right?
Oh yeah. And I think, and that's interesting to hear you say that, because for me, I'm about to be in my 40s. So technically I'm 25 years away from retiring. So we all heard of Dave Ramsey and how to retire and when it's too late, all this stuff. And when I'm like, oh, this is how much you should put away a month. This is how much you should do. And by this year, you'll have this amount. Yeah. And I'm just like, cool. But I mean, with the economy, with things happening with my kids, and I'm like, gosh, I don't even know if I can put that much away. But I mean, I could put some away, or I can use that money, and take my kids on a really cool adventure, and they remember that forever. And maybe because I remember doing some really cool things with my family, and those things marked me. Yeah. And I feel like that's legacy a little bit. Of course. I feel like, retirement, legacy,
And so that gets me to a question, when we talk about legacy, is legacy the inheritance, the financial inheritance you leave behind, right? Or is it the memories you leave behind,
The
the
impact.
impact you leave behind? What's
Man.
real legacy? I know the Bible talks about that you should leave an inheritance, right?
Yeah.
And that's honorable. You know, that's
But
stewarding money.
Yeah. Okay.
But that I don't think the word inheritance in the Bible is speaking of money in and of itself.
That's
at
what I
all.
was about to say. Yeah. Because when you look at Ephesians 1, since I mean, I like the Bible, I like to read it. Ephesians 1 talks about an inheritance that we've received from God, from
Right.
being his children. But like, it's not like, oh, an inheritance. Oh my gosh, money out
Right.
the wazoo. But yeah, God takes care of his kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's real interesting to even go back on that. Cause honestly, like, I mean, again, I've heard stories like how people won't remember how much money you've made or how much like money you gave and things like that, but they're gonna remember the impact, the times I had. Like,
That's right.
I'm not gonna remember like growing up without a super wealthy family. I'm gonna remember like the fishing trips I went with my dad,
Yeah.
like my mom, and the road trips we took, the times we did certain things, the times I flew with my dad to some place,
Yeah.
like, and sat in the front with him and flew a plane, like. I'm going to remember all that stuff. That had nothing to do with money or like, honestly, I don't remember like an impactful moment. It's like, hey, here's $10,000 from
Right.
mom and dad. Bless you. Like, I'm like, I don't remember that. I know
Yeah.
they've done stuff like that
I'm sure.
before, but like, I'm grateful, but I remember how they made me feel
Yeah.
and the time they've spent with me. And I feel like that's like a legacy. So I like even looping back to retirement, is like, you know, when you get to that stage and you're thinking about that in your life, like, because I'm thinking about that now. I'm 37. I'm like, what would I like to leave for Wes and Lainey and my future kids? Like, what would I like to leave for them as a legacy? Is like, oh, a bunch of money? I mean, that'd be nice. Like, everyone would love to set their family up to, you know, like all these multimillionaire billionaires where, you know, they just set their family up. They don't have to work a day of their life, whatever. I mean, I want my kids to work. I don't want them to not work. But I'm just like rethinking, like, it's not just about working super hard. Because right now I'm working very hard.
Yeah.
I'm working very hard to make sure my family's okay. And I'm just like, but what is that worth if my son like is like, oh, dad, just go work. Like, cause he's 3 and he's used that line before and it almost hit me. I was like, no, I'm going to go play with you because I want you to remember that daddy's fun and daddy loves to play. But when I'm putting him to bed, there was a few nights in a row where I would put him to bed. I'm like, Wes, I need you to go to bed because I need to go finish working. So he remembered that. And so now one night it hit me so hard. One night he said, Daddy, I'll go to bed so you can go back to work. And I was like, oh my gosh, that hit me so hard.
Yeah.
And I just don't want my kids to grow up knowing that all my dad did was work hard so he can retire.
You know, as you're talking, it does. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've got regrets, right? Speaking.
Sure.
When I was 48 when Caroline was born. You know, my youngest.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
48.
48.
Wow, bro. You got some swimmers. Oh
right.
my gosh.
So, but in my 50s was where finances got hard. That was where I was going through some, you know, the challenge with the embezzlement and going through, you know, there was a lot of things there. So that period of time when Caroline was real young and Emily was still little and even Jonathan and Anna were still in the house, they were teens. Megan and Aileen were adults, but I wasn't present in that way that you're talking. I mean, I just wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, and but for anybody who can identify with that is by being intentional now, even as they're adults.
Yeah.
You know, all my kids, even Caroline's an adult now. She finally got to 18. You
Yeah.
know? But I'm setting an example for them and investing in myself and in them now in a way you can't make up for things.
Yeah.
But you can redeem.
Yeah. That's
You know,
right.
it's by setting a new course and being, you know, what's going to be the legacy now, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know a friend of mine, he talks about his grandfather a lot, and he just has these memories of his grandfather, but they're not as good.
Yeah.
So because his grandfather worked so hard all the way until he died.
Yeah.
And he died having a stroke. And But what we saw was he was just always working, always doing stuff, always work, and he just work. And it just like we don't like when we don't notice that kind of stuff. But this guy, my friend of mine, he noticed that, and he noticed that his grandfather worked so hard, and it just he doesn't have a memory of like, oh, I did this with my grandpa.
Yeah.
I did this with my grandpa. And so it's just like kind of rough, and kind of looking at that guy's story, I'm just like, oh my gosh. And
right.
that makes me kind of really grateful for my dad and my mom, because they're these grandparents that like when they're around Wes, they're not like working. They're not like, it's joy. It's like memory. It's let's get in the water. It's fun.
Right.
And so, and I know there'll be a time when Wes is a little older and he's a teenager, and my dad will be like, hey, Wes, come help your grandpa with the boat, and clean it or something, just teaching him responsibility. But I know, because of who my dad is and my mom, I know that they're going to show him a good time and have fun. And that's kind of the legacy they're going to leave behind. But yeah, I just think it's like having a mindset of, my age at 37, I'm thinking of that now, but even people watching this are a little bit older than me that are reaching retirement age, that are like, thinking, hey, think about legacy, not retire, not money, not retirement. So think about legacy. What are you going to leave behind? Not just financial stuff, but memory.
Yeah.
And things that your kids and grandkids can take and continue on. Cause from my dad, I'm being grateful. It took me a little bit of time to understand gratefulness from my dad, but I'm taking notes of things like, ooh, man, I want to keep that going with my son.
Yeah.
So
that's so good. And again, I'm going to bring this around, the 5 pillars of next third, best third is your thought life. What are you thinking of? Are you controlling your thoughts? Your physical condition, right? Your emotional well-being, the relationships, and then the identity issues. And so as a man is getting into those ages, 50 plus, is he being intentional about investing in the relationships around him?
Yeah.
I talk a lot about creating new relationships, but a big thing is nurturing the ones that exist.
Yeah, it's true.
If that's going to be legacy, you're going to. And so what does it look like for a 66-year-old man to be investing in the relationships with his grandkids? Is it just showing up, or is it being healthy enough to be engaged?
Yeah.
Right? It just ups it a level. So what I eat, am I working out? What am I in agreement with? Am I focused on, fear and doubts, and I don't have enough, all these regrets and shame, all that affects your relationships with your loved ones, which is impacting your legacy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you had an episode early on in your season here that we talked about blue zones.
Yeah.
And like these blue zones around the world were people who live like into their late 90s, hundreds.
Yeah.
And when you step back and look at that, those people are still active and working.
Yes.
And they're like tending a garden, going to the market, doing all this. And they're doing this at like 90 years old and 100. And they took a step back and looked at it, and the diet's the thing. They're active. Yes, that's the thing. But also they were around family.
That's it. Social engagement. They lived near family and around family, and there's joy. Yeah. And because of the joy and the laughter with the family, it helped them live longer. Yeah. So I feel like retirement, don't disconnect. Don't disconnect.
When retirement comes, connect even more. Like, I'm excited. I've gotten more, like, I'll loop back to my uncle, but like my uncle and my cousin is the son of my uncle. They're the reason why I got into golf. And like, I love golf now. And I've been able to travel and play at some legendary places now. That I don't know if they've gotten to play at yet, but I want to rub it in a little bit. But they probably have played some. Cool
They've played some you haven't.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm hoping to go next year with you to go play in Scotland. So we'll see.
We're going to go back to Scotland and Ireland.
I know, that'll be really cool. Maybe we'll film podcasts in Scotland.
We have to.
That'll be so cool.
And we have to get the caddies on.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Oh man, that'd be good. But I want to like. When I go and see my uncle, in Houston, I want to take my clubs and like and I want to connect with him.
Yeah.
So, and I want to build that connection, because I feel like having that connection time, because I know, and I've seen this with my uncle and his son, like they play golf together a lot. And that's awesome. And I love seeing that. I love seeing a father and a son doing some type of connection together.
Yeah.
And I need to ask them, but I'm pretty sure they play quite a bit, maybe once a week. I'm pretty sure they're always playing together and playing tournaments together. But he's keeping that connection. And so, yeah, but I think retirement, don't think about money, like think about connection and joy and happiness.
Connection, joy, reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go back to this list of common health issues men face. They face depression, anxiety, loneliness, social isolation, loss of identity, and stress related to either financial concerns or health problems. That's what's waiting for so many.
Yeah.
If you're not intentional, right?
Yeah.
You know, I talk about this on several episodes, and it's not blowing my horn, but it is in a way, because one of the things that, you know, that I've done is here I'm at this age, and I'm doing a podcast. Started a podcast at age 65, right? You know, I've got my pastoral.
Oh yeah.
I just joined a new brokerage that I'm really excited about in real estate. I mean, I'm starting to get into development and some really exciting things. That, I mean, I'm more pumped about real estate than I've been in years. Wow. You know, I'm doing my acting classes. Yeah. You know, and you know, we're gonna get those headshots here pretty soon, and actually get an agent. And so I'm actually in some ways, I'm 100% more alive and engaged today than I've ever been.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought that up, because I was actually meeting with the pastor, and he's in his 60s, and he told me that he was reading some articles. I was trying to find where it was, but he told me that the most in age gaps, like where you are the most productive in your life, is between the age of 60 and 70. Yeah, is when you do the most and you're the most productive. And he said the second is between 70 and 80.
That's right.
And then the third, I think he said, is between 70 and 60. And then he mentioned, and again, I have to look it up. I would love to look it up, but I was shocked at like the most productive times of your life was between 60 and 70. And that matches
right,
what you're doing. And it goes back to not losing your dream and decaying, because, I mean, looking at a proverb, you know, it's like without vision, you perish. Yeah. So like without dreams, you're going to perish. Like you're going to wither away. You're going to just, because it is I mean, you reading that list about anxiety, depression, all of that also loops back to like, you know, if you have to continue working but if you're healthy, like yourself, you're still working, but you're enjoying it because you're healthy. Right. So, but if you weren't healthy and working out and eating right, you're probably going to sit on the couch and just melt away.
And a big part of, honestly, and you know this about me, a big part of why I enjoy working is because I enjoy building relationships. Yeah. I'm intentional about that.
Joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a big part of it. Yeah. You know, it's true. I read before about productivity, and from 60 to 70, you make more money, you have more impact. You know, it is the most productive part of anyone's life. Yeah. And when you said 70 to 80, and I didn't believe that, because I heard that too, and all statistics bear that out.
Yeah, it's weird. I need to find it and read more about it, but because I don't believe it either. Yeah. Like it
doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but it can be true, right? It can be true. And again, you know, that's the whole thing. This is such a fun discussion, right? Yeah, that's cool. Because again, from my point of view, at age 66, I'm in the middle of it, right? I'm right at the beginning where all my peers are at this point of decision. You know, they're either retiring or about to retire and everything. But for you and your peers, it's like looking forward. It's like the decisions you're making right now, you're investing in your 65-year-old self. Yeah. So if you're taking care of yourself emotionally, if you're taking care of your thought life, if you're in agreement with, because you and I both are believers, if you're in agreement with what God says about you, right? And not what your fears are and what that says about you. Yeah. If you're taking care of yourself emotionally, right? Yeah. And then I think probably as important, if not most important, is investing in relationships.
Yeah. And I think about, because I mean, for me, I have a goal getting into my 40s I'm going to be 38 in August. So going into my 40s, I want to be the
When's
healthiest.
your birthday?
August 31st.
August 31st.
Oh my gosh. I forgot. Happy birthday. Well, not yet, but yeah, but so we're almost exactly 30 years apart. So you're 66. So we're like 28 years apart.
28 years apart.
So, but I want to be the healthiest I've ever been going into my 40s, because between my 40s and 50s, that's when my kids are going to be wildlings. They're going to be running around doing stuff. And I want to create those healthy, joyful memories. Absolutely. During that time.
And you want to be virile enough that at age 48 you can sire another child. You know?
That's true. Yeah, I know. No. I'm not going to do that. But also I'm thinking, like, I want to create that good habits of 10 years of healthiness that leads into my 50s and 60s. Yeah. Because I don't want to be this slob, this like couch potato when I retire and all I do is just sit around and don't do anything. Yeah. Like I mean, when I think about retirement now, because people ask the question, we play this game with our friends a lot. It's like, if money wasn't an issue, if you didn't have to do, if you can do anything you wanted, what would it be? And sometimes I'm like, man, I would love to be like a hunting guide or like a fishing guide, like take people out on a boat, let's go fishing every day. And so like, I think about that kind of stuff of, like, when I retire, what would I want to do? Right. But I would want to still have connection. But like, I would still, I don't feel like I want to stop working, but I want to do something that I love. And yes, it'd be nice to get money for it, but like do something I love, but then still build connection and memories with people.
See, I love that. As you're talking, what you're doing is you're dreaming about what it could be. Yeah. If you wait until you're in the 60s, it's harder to dream or rekindle dreams. Oh, yeah. You know, you're the producer, but I don't know if we know the statistics, but when we started this, I had a target, right? I thought we were going to get men 50s and older. And that's not who's really subscribing.
Yeah, we got a lot of women.
Yeah. And we got younger guys too.
It's interesting.
And out of my personal sphere of influence, some of the guys who I thought we would be getting, I've asked a couple of them. You know, are you following? Are you subscribed? So, well, I'm subscribed and I'm not listening. And I look at them and I'm close enough to them to ask them questions. And you know why they don't? It's because two of them in particular say, well, I hear what you're saying about exercise and diets, but you know, my life, I'm still pretty busy and I'm out of shape and I can't exercise until I get, lose some weight. You know, I've got knee problems and I can't exercise with my knee problems. And I'm like going, no.
That's why you have problems.
That's why you have problems, because you don't exercise, because you're complacent, because your diet sucks. And yet here you are. You're like going, man, I want to be this guide, and I want to be doing all these fun things. And so you're going to be living a lifestyle towards that, which goes back to how I started this. About it's not about what you retire from; it's what you're retiring towards. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Without a vision, you perish. Yeah. You know, that scripture verse, when it says without a vision, people perish. It really is. It means without vision, which is like a yoke, like around two animals. Yep. If there's not a yoke and there's two animals pulling a cart, nothing gets done because they go different directions. There's no focus, right? There's no direction for it. Yeah. There's no purpose. There's no intentionality. And so without vision, you just aimlessly, navigate the day.
Man, I feel like retirement is just not. I mean, I don't know. I was trying to look up where it came from, but retirement's not in the Bible. No. But I mean, so since you and I believe in the Bible, it just makes it think like retirement could be a scam.
Now we're meddling.
I know we could do a whole other thing.
We could do a whole other thing, but really, if you look at it in America, where it truly originated was after World War II, right? And after World War II, all these veterans, they came in and we were rebuilding the nation, and we had the greatest, the baby boomer generation, and people were going to work for companies, and they were going to be working until they got their retirement age, and they're going to have some sort of a whatever it is, a severance, or it's some sort of a money left behind. Yeah. And then of course we introduced Social Security, And that was this promise saying, well, you give the government your money, and we promise to take care of you when you get older. And I still have my doubts about what that's going to look like.
It's funny because, yeah, even looking up where the word retirement came from has nothing to do with money and age.
Mm-mm.
It came from the French word retirer, which was in the 1500s, and it was adopted into English meaning to withdraw. So it came from, war. Like, oh, let's retire. Let's get out of the war.
That's
so, but it's like,
but
I
think
mean,
about,
it's just super
play
interesting.
that word out, right? To the men we're talking about. To withdraw. You want to withdraw from life?
Man, I don't know if I want to.
No.
I don't like that word.
I don't
like retire.
I don't like the word retirement either. So anyway, it's been fun.
It's been good.
If this has been meaningful, and I hope it is, if you do us a favor and if you'd subscribe, if you'd like, if you'd comment, if you'd share, that helps us grow this channel. It helps us reach more guys, and we couldn't do it without you. So here's to your next third being your best third. See you next time.